Hello, everyone, and welcome to Attack of Opportunity. Today it's my distinct pleasure to be discussing a bunch of things that can be posted on Instagram and still be great content with the Bugbear brothers, Daniel and Cam. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So I'm looking through my Instagram feed, and I already follow these guys, but when someone kind of gets into a niche, your brain starts going, right, these people, that topic, these people, that topic, and it starts a pattern, and then you just start anticipating it with your breakfast going, hey, where's this really cool post? And lately, the Bugbear brothers have been posting a whole bunch of things to do with retro tabletop gaming, a lot of video game screenshots, and a lot of old module covers, the artwork, the actual game release dates, and I'm finding this stuff really very interesting and very nostalgic for us old-time gamers going back. Oh, I played that one. No, I haven't played that one. Ooh, never heard of that video game. That kind of thing. So we've reached out here at Attack of Opportunity and cornered two gentlemen that are, well, around the world. Where are you guys actually calling in from?
I'm from New Zealand right now. I'm living in Mount Maunganui. I moved here from Vancouver about 5 months ago.
So a Canadian that's
and I'm in.
Sorry to say, Canadian that's currently 13 hours in the future because it's late in the evening.
Correct. Yes, I can tell you what's going to happen tomorrow.
So apologize for the delay. We'll just make you guys look like you're thinking about your answers to my questions. And you, Daniel, where are you calling in from?
Yeah, I'm calling from Toronto, Canada. I also used to live in Vancouver, but I've been out here since 2017.
Okay. First of all, I would like to swear on my hat of the Rebel Alliance. I didn't know these guys were Canadian. All I know is they were posting as the Bugbear brothers. I'm assuming, are you guys even brothers in real life? Because now my show's is falling apart.
We are not. No, we're just good friends.
Being deceived. What's in a name? Bugbear brothers. It does roll off the tongue. It's far more fun to say fast than rubber baby buggy bumpers. Several times fast. I'll give you guys that. The name caught my attention, but more importantly, the content and the way you guys just quickly describe some interesting things about the actual content you're posting up there. And this is what you guys have been doing lately, but the reason to have you on the show, of course, is for people to get you to know better, for me to grill you with geeky questions. So let's go back in time. Sorry, Scooby-Doo, 80s vintage. Starting with Daniel. How did you first know that you were a geek, a gamer, a nerd, a Bugbear brother of the future?
Well, the way that I got into Dungeons and Dragons was I originally was working at the same high school as Cam here, and me, him, and a few other individuals working there decided to play some poker, and I took them for all their money, so they wanted to play other games, and I said let's play a role-playing game, and then when Cam showed up, he showed up with a real dagger and a bunch of old dice and a few old modules. And I said, no, I meant like a zombie apocalypse RPG. And Cam was slightly embarrassed, but that's when I realized that I needed to learn Dungeons and Dragons so that he could play again. You know, it was destiny.
And you use his prop on you if you buy one. Well, since you mentioned a dagger, we're talking earlier, and before I get to you, Cam, for your very first question, right in the shot, Cam is wearing this great Bowie shirt. So, of course, being an 80s teen, I thought he was talking about David Bowie, the singer. But no, Cam, tell me your Bowie story again. I love this.
Yes, this is for my son, whose name is Bowie, and not named after David Bowie, but named after Jim Bowie, the frontiersman, the American frontiersman. And I guess maybe not the inventor of the Bowie knife, but the person who made the Bowie knife famous.
So the knife, the classic survival knife, as it were, is actually named after Monsieur Bowie.
Yeah. That's apparently he was a pretty prolific knife fighter down in the States.
Not a dagger, but as close of a content creation crossover as I can get. So,
Yes.
so Cam, what about yourself? How did you first know you were a geek, a nerd, one of us?
I guess, well, it was, early 80s. I really got into collecting comics. I've been kind of a collector all my life, just kind of like whatever the, Garbage Pail Kids cards, mostly X-Men comics. And then, later on it got to Dungeons and Dragons, and then I just pretty much bought everything I could at my local comic shop. That's actually how I got introduced to Dungeons and Dragons, is I saw this really cool artwork of Dragon Magazine and all the modules right beside the comics. And I thought, oh, what is this? And it kind of looked taboo, and it was like the height of that satanic panic. So it was kind of like the taboo corner of the comic book shop, and I was really drawn to that. So I would say it started with comic books.
Running around the comic book store with your Bowie knife. Stay back! This is my corner. That kind of thing. So back to Daniel. How long have you been, playing these games? How long have you been the big nerd with the dice, taking people's gold instead of taking people's cash because no one wants to play poker with you anymore?
I've actually, I'm way more recent to the game than Cam is. I only discovered Dungeons and Dragons in 2016, and I had not been allowed to watch any movies or cartoons with any type of magic in it growing up. And I actually had my trolls. I had those little trolls with the spiked hair. Mm-hmm. I used to take care of them as a kid, and one day I came home and they had all been burned because my parents thought they had demons in them. So the only familiarity I had with Dungeons and Dragons was through these Adventures in Odyssey episodes that were made by Christian companies that would warn me about playing these games. So when I finally got old enough to do my own stuff, and I found out that Cam was a long-term D&D player, I decided to buy all the 5th edition stuff, and Cam has been updating me on the history of the game since.
Oh yeah, see that would be a shame if you come home and go, geez Mom, I went to the trouble of carving all my friends' names into these trolls. I hope they don't end up with 3-degree burns because you burnt my toys. The double as voodoo dolls. No. Go to school and everyone's like sick for the day. Geez, Mom was right, but you can't really tell them. Now you guys are again Canadian. The Satanic Panic was pretty big up here as well as it was in the States. Not something I'm happy to point out, but just so you know. There's a great movie with Tom Hanks, very young Tom Hanks, called Monsters and Mazes, that is based on a true story about a bunch of college students that got into gaming and were using the underground tunnels and stuff under the school, and things went south. And a very cool interview with the sheriff who walked into this kid's room, looked around, and he had a tack board, and he had lined up tacks to look like hallways, and the sheriff realized that the kid had mapped out something. And that's actually how they found anything around, buildings, anything in the town. The only thing that fit that pattern were the tunnels, and that's how they began investigating, if memory serves me correct. But anyway, enough about the panic and Monsieur Big S that everyone thought this was linked to. Why? Well, several first editions of D&D or whatever, these were the bad guys. These were things that were crossing over, that were at the end of the dungeon. They were the thing you were supposed to defeat. But the guy that runs the game, the referee, had to run them, had to be them, had to voice them, had to look up and be the person that was whacking, the players back. And it was usually the dungeon masters taking the bad rap because they had the books in the room with very interesting looking artwork on them. And then someone comes and you were like, here, Mom, look at all that porn I got in the closet. Please don't find my monster manual. You'd rather get shit with that for that. So back to Cam for my next question. You guys have been playing some for short term, some for a long term. both big fans of the genre. You guys have been playing for a while. What made you guys decide to become, and I hate to hit you with this title, but technically you are content creators. Why Instagram and why the retro gaming? What made you guys decide to actually gone from the consumer to the creator? Was there some sort of inspiration? Did you see someone doing something and said, we're going to do that, or something like that?
Well, yeah, actually, it was the Instagram thing was kind of a means to an end. Dan and I had an idea that we'd like to start writing modules or adventures, and this would be a good way to kind of get our content out there. So we thought, okay, well, let's just start posting Dungeons and Dragons related things, and then once our module's done, then we'll kind of advertise it on Instagram. And I had a lot of old content, and that's basically what I started doing is scans of my old stuff or pictures and just kind of posting it. And kind of in the middle of our writing process, I ended up, my wife and I had a child, so that kind of put, kind of a bit of a slowdown on our work process. So then it was almost like the Instagram thing came to the forefront because that's something that we could both do, and it only takes a few minutes to put in, and the knowledge was already there, so it just seemed like a natural thing. And we've since finished our module and put it out, but it was just kind of, I think what we didn't expect was the community on Instagram and how supportive people would be, and just how cool it was. Like you mentioned about mazes and monsters, and we had a post about that a little while ago, and then people got really into that and started posting more and more in the comments about things that we didn't even know about the movie. And that's a really cool aspect. But that's how we got started. It was basically to get some eyes on our module that we're making.
No, I was one of those posters. You look at Mongers on Instagram, and I was the one that had the account that day, and you guys were posting stuff, and I was making comments like, I remember this, and like they said, that nostalgia, that reminiscing, that touching base with someone. You're not alone with your pile of stuff in the corner that you can't sell on eBay, and yet you're loath to get rid of, and I mean, I got a little pile of Dragonlance comics, a bunch of X-Men 80s cartoon VHSs, and a bunch of old adventures, first editions, second edition, bread boxed up that I will not part with. Ever, ever, ever. And I have to hide it from my wife whenever she spring cleans, right. And like, oh, let's eBay this stuff. It's like, oh, sure, honey. You offer something up from the treasure trove. Oh, here's a Black Widow slingshot that I never use anymore, honey. Maybe we could sell that, And she's like, oh, cool. I'll go see how much this is worth. It's like, you do that. And then I have like 2 minutes to hide the stash. It's like, okay, where can I hide this for another year? That doesn't, not that this stuff's really worth anything on eBay anymore, but you just don't want to, But sharing it, like you said, scanning it, putting it up there, kudos to both of you guys with this idea, and doing it, like with a buddy kind of thing. I mean, Bowie could just go it alone there, and there's like a couple pictures of his knife, a couple of cartoons, that type of thing. A lot of people do that. I like the idea that it's a duo. Bugbear brothers, plural. There's two guys that get along, and the two guys, Tim and his brother from Tabletop Terrors. Just the idea that these two brothers are making content together is really interesting. Really turns heads. Oh, what are they doing together? That's really neat. So you get these two buddies, an old school gamer, a new school gamer. Just don't sit down at a poker table with one of them, and off you guys go, because you have that more than one person is being creative. More than one person can come up with the content, and I think you will affect more people.
Well, this is the thing.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's the cool thing about it is whatever you build or create is not going to be exactly what you had expected, because you have the other person and to echo it off of, and it turns into kind of its own thing. Like you can take things in a direction that you didn't even know was possible, and that happens with Dan and I, because we obviously have different ways of thinking, and it just kind of we inspire each other a little bit, I think.
No, that's cool. So let me direct. I'll bounce questions, one off of each of you. Daniel, how long have you two been creating content together?
How long we've been creating content together? Well, that's a tricky question. I guess in some sense, since Cam suggested forming the Instagram, which I believe was just over a year ago or just around a year ago. Mm-hmm. But then in terms of creating content together in another sense, I would say back in 2016, because a lot of our early campaigns and Cam's character and some of the NPCs in the world is part of what we felt the need to codify and actually write modules around. We just had these awesome adventures and campaigns, and we kind of realized as individuals began moving out of Vancouver and the game group disbanded and we all had to go find our own game groups around the country or in different countries in Cam's case, that was important to basically turn some of these great ideas into something that other people in the community could use. We just didn't want to get lost. So in our first module that we wrote, which was the Psionic Crucible, the Fat Cannibal, which is a long title, one of Cam's earliest PCs who had actually played years ago when he was a young guy, stars. He's the star of the show. It's Axe Braystyle, and we wrote the adventure around part of his backstory. So it was really cool to kind of canonize it in that way.
Yeah, no, that's cool, because a lot of people think, okay, well, the Dungeon Master is the one running the adventure. He'll be the guy that writes the stuff, and your player's a guy for feedback or impact or input. But like I said, it sounds like you guys really 50-50 and go back and forth. Because I really don't want to put onus just on Cam identifying with the older gamer that obviously would have the retro novice after you admit to being a recent gamer. Personally, I have found in the community that a lot of, I've only DM'd for 2 years or that kind of thing. These gamers are red hot. They are enthused. They're like, wow, what have I been doing for the last 10 years of my life? And they're hitting it so hard and going after it and coming up with fabulous, creative, new ideas that someone, shall we say, set in their ways, like myself, not Cam. He's really hip. Wouldn't come up with. Never to knock the new school gamer. So you guys got the sort of like the best of the old and the new in there kind of thing. It is great to reflect on the old stuff, but it can wire you to a certain way of thinking. So a new school gamer, just as valuable, if not more so. While I'm on Dan, do you have a particular favorite class, race, alignment that you personally like that's your go-to? And Cam, you're on deck for this question. So.
Yeah, I would. It's hard for me to answer that question without being biased, because Cam ran Temple of Elemental Evil, and when he did, he did Village of Hamlet beforehand, and I played a wizard, an old man named Boone Longbeard. And as I've told Cam a number of times, it got to the point with that character where I didn't actually have to really come up with what Boone would say or do. The character, it just came to me. Mm-hmm. One of those beautiful moments where you kind of begin to discover the character instead of just create it. So that human wizard is definitely close to my heart. But there was one other character I played in one of our buddies' campaigns, which was a homebrew race, kind of a goblinoid creature called a Code, and his name was Mo, and he was this strange little goblin. I think goblins and wizards are probably where my heart is at. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah. What about you, Cam? Same question.
Yeah.
I would agree with Dan. I enjoy wizards probably the most, because it might not be the go-to for someone first getting into Dungeons and Dragons, because there's a lot of things to consider, a lot of spells and how they interact with each other. But I really like that. I like planning out, okay, what are the encounters that we'll most likely run into today, or what's going to happen today, and then choosing those spells to fit with the encounters that might happen. And yeah, I also like just the frailty of the wizard. So it's like death is just around the corner for a wizard. So he's got to play really smart because, we played Tomb of Annihilation a year ago, and a little girl kicked my wizard in the shin and just about killed him. So that's when I realized, I'm like, okay, well, I've got to play a bit smarter here. And that's what I really like about it.
No, that's
and there's just a multitude of different things that you can do beyond swinging a sword, which has its own kind of enjoyment to it. But yeah, I like the spellcasters probably.
Yeah, you open your book, you have a new skill set, new powers every day. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The advantage to the fighter, so that we don't say that he's a one-trick pony, is the fighter is always the guy that gets to try stuff. Well, what if I climb up on what if I swan dive? Like, he's always bending the physics, even though you have the wizards who knows physics. It was, think about it, it's the fighter that's always trying to do stuff with the DM to make something happen in the physical world, because he can't turn invisible. He can't, make the mud fall and, all that kind of stuff. So, like, not to slack on the fighter or whatever, but no, I feel you. The wizard, open a book, new powers every day. Now, I remember the Gauntlet video game, and no one wanted to play the wizard. Sure, you had range, but he would die easy, even though all you heard was warrior needs food badly. Right. Well, warrior's up there taking the hits. That's why his health went down and needs the food. And the elf would shoot the food, and you get mad at the elf player because they're like, you're destroying our hit point potions, dude. That kind of thing. I noticed one of your recent posts was actually a video game. In 1987, I think. What was it? Warlock's Tower, or has a great picture of a gargoyle and the tail's coming up at you and there's blood on the tail, like he's just swiped it at somebody, and the gargoyle isn't doing that. Right.
Shadowgate was the most recent one that we posted, and that was kind of a point and click adventure. It's kind of a throwback to those first kind of role-playing games that came out on the computer. I never had a computer as a kid. It was just a Nintendo. But that Shadowgate was one of those ones where it had the sound effects, but still screen, just kind of a picture of what was going on.
So these days, someone takes Skyrim for granted, and I still find it mind-blowing. It's so much fun to play that game. I was never one for the turn-based where everybody just lines up and just kind of, you did something, right? But that click, that sort of crappy 3D 8 pixel, 16 pixel chroma key coming at you, that type of thing, that suspense of what's around the corners because it was so vaguely drawn, as well as the really, really old stuff that was just word-based, going, you're at a crossroads. And you'd have to figure out a command that the computer would even accept, let alone do anything. And I always found those to be so much more, what's the word I'm looking for? Engrossing than the fancy 3D view and stuff. But then you get back into something like Skyrim where you get the first person view, and you can just fall down a hole and it's not even supposed to be the dungeon you're in yet, and you're like, what am I fighting, what am I doing, that kind of thing. They've come a long way, and I really like the fact that you guys are looking at not just stuff that you've played, not just stuff that you own. It does really seem that the Bugbear brothers are reaching out, talking to the community, maybe even asking what they want to see a quick little review on, and just kind of running with a theme. This 80s video game came out next to this 80s book came out to, like, Larry Elmore, one of my favorite artists, dominated the 80s and the Dragonlance circuit back then, along with Dan Parkinson, Jeff Easley. They had all the contracts for the cover art for these books, but a lot of their art and everything, the tone, the colors and everything really set a mood, and off of it was the video game. More interactive, crappier colors, and push that. So I'm sorry, you guys are taking me down memory lane, but I really like the way, if you guys have an Instagram account out there, check out the Bugbear brothers and just have a schmooze. Go right through their posts, and even if you do not know old school gaming, I promise you will not be disappointed. So my next question for both of you is, do you have any other content going? You've written adventure, where you can find it. Where have you published it? Is it on RPG Drive-Thru? Like, where can we get our hands on this adventure you guys wrote?
Yeah, it's on Drive Through RPG.
Okay. And the long ass title again was
the Psionic Crucible of the Fat Cannibal.
Okay. We'll put that in, in a link bio later.
It's a bit long.
We'll put that in a link bio.
Yeah.
Okay.
It might be a little hard to remember, but yeah, it features a lot of our play tested stuff that we've done with our homebrew campaigns and stuff, and we just decided to put it down on paper, and yeah, because our players seem to enjoy it, so we thought other people might as well.
Okay. So bonus round, fast round. Okay. Daniel, what else have you guys got going? Do you have any other content out there besides your creativity of the module and the Instagram posts of late? You guys got anything else going on?
Yeah, so we're in the process of writing a second module, which is a storyline follow-up, but also something you could run as a standalone quest. And that's called the Crypts of Caverndale. And we've actually started bringing in members of the community on Instagram to help us build this second module. Oh, cool. So for our first module, me and Cam out of pocket paid for art by Runehammer, or Drunkens and Dragons, who's big on YouTube and has done Index Card RPG. So we worked with him a little bit. That was really fun. But for module 2, we really wanted the feeling of just, can we do this at a very grassroots level? Like, we even stepped out of programs like InDesign and are trying to work with Microsoft Word and other programs just anyone could use, trying to kind of proof of concept show that when you get a bunch of people in a community together and you get your artists, you get your map makers, you get your writers, and they're just doing it for the love of creation, you can get something really special. So we actually have a lovely girl that is in one of my Waterloo game groups named Victoria Parker. She's doing art, and she doesn't even have a background in art. She's doing her PhD in psychology, but she's a great artist. So we got her working on the art, and we had, I'm going to butcher the name. I'm pretty sure it's Adam Bradshaw, but he runs Vexillation, another Instagram account where he's a map maker. And we won one of his map giveaway contests. So I just messaged him. I said, Adam, instead of you just creating some crappy map we'll use once, why don't you join in on this project here and build a map for our upcoming module? And Adam was like, I'm stoked, let's do it. So he just sent us these maps, and it's one of our posts a couple of weeks ago, but it just looks incredible. So yeah, that's what our energy is going towards. And then me and Cam, going into the future, have 2 things. I won't talk about Cam's secret project because it's too cool to spoil, and he can do that if he wants to. But the other project that we want to work on is creating a book full of kind of homebrew rules, a bunch of things that we use at the table that we think make the game just better overall. One of the ones that Cam introduced years ago was the death shot. So if you run out of death saving throws and you're just bleeding out on the ground and you're dead, Cam allows you to take a shot of some strong alcohol to come back, and he allows you to do that once, or sometimes he'd get you to roll on a crazy table. Cam can tell you more about it, but stuff like that we just think brings the game to life for our table, so we want to publish it.
Some things are worse than death scenario, and the DM owns your character after that. I've been down that road. But okay, so Cam, social media content outlets, where else can we find you besides Instagram? Are you guys on any other social media outlet?
Yes, yeah, we're on Facebook. Although I think Instagram is our main thing, because it's just so user friendly, especially for me with a new baby. It doesn't take long for me to just post up there and kind of write a kind of a terse description of what's going on, or what this particular post is about, and it's really handy. Facebook, I think, is great, but I would feel the urge to kind of write, a few paragraphs, or kind of do a blog post on it. So I kind of like the brevity that Instagram offers, because it's mainly about the pictures, and people who are interested don't need to read what I'm writing. They can just look at the picture and go, oh, that's a cool picture, and go on to the next
Yeah,
thing.
I remember that kind of thing.
So yeah, eventually, I mean, with more time, Facebook might be a thing, but yeah,
Might be a
it's, basically our
future
Facebook.
secret project thing.
It could be. It could be. You never know.
Okay, sorry, I won't fish. I won't fish. So are you guys at the point, like, I've got your Bugbear Brothers logo that you gave me here splashed up, on the thing. Does that mean there's possible merchandise in the future or currently available?
None currently available, but in the future there will be.
Okay, cool. And like I said, we're hesitant to talk about latest projects and what's in the future. So let's get personal. These are optional questions. You don't have to answer them. While I'm still on you, Cam, if you don't mind me asking, again, I love the fact that gamers come in all shapes and sizes, all walks of life, every color, creed, etc., etc. What do you do for a living, Cam?
Well, right now I'm a stay-at-home dad. But, and yeah, I recently moved to New Zealand and I've got my permanent residence here, so I will be able to get a job. But before I met Dan, I was a counselor at a psychiatric treatment center.
Mm-hmm.
And then for about 12 years. And I quit my job and went traveling for a year. And then I came back and that's when I met Dan. We worked at the same high school and we work in the kind of the special needs area of the high school, primarily with young men, and yeah, that's where we met, and then I quit there and moved here.
Cam, is he there now? I'm seeing a lot of white shirt on white background. Should I not make any sudden moves or noises?
That's his beholder costume. It's just a floating head.
Sorry, Dan. I told you I'd come back to that setup. That's actually on me because I made him. I made him go to a blank wall because the other thing wasn't an option. I told you I'd tease you about that somehow. Anyway, so that's how you guys met. And Daniel, what are you currently doing for a living? Are you still out in Toronto? Not well, actually, that's it's like barely 2 hours south of me.
Oh, really? I didn't realize you were so close. You got to come down. Yeah, I'm in Toronto. I'm doing a second master's out here. So I did my first master's in moral development, developmental psychology, just about an hour away from here. And as far as making a living goes, I'm not married, don't have any kids. I just basically do psychology research. So right now I'm studying principals, mental health in high schools. And then I also do some work on environmental sustainability with kids. But yeah, I met Cam back when I was doing work with young men with special needs, but I've since moved into more general education. I'm looking towards becoming a teacher. So. Oh,
very cool. Very, very cool. Yeah. And now something I've heard recently in the last 2 or 3 years are teachers bringing the role-playing games to the 8 to 12-year-old table. And there's all these teachers that these are my girls and we're all playing, this type of thing, which I think is fabulous. The very, very, very first time I was actually exposed to D&D, I didn't know what it was. I have this story I tell many times. I was sitting in the back, 16, very interested. The drummer and the guitar player, Rush Genesis, very cool story, very cool setting. They're talking about Dragonlance novel. Oh, really? I'm in, Dad watches Star Trek. We saw Conan because of my old man, big sci-fi fantasy. I'm exposed, and then it's like, oh, Hockey Night in Canada. Okay, cool. That kind of thing going on back and forth. The old Doctor Who, right? But when you're talking about the school, it triggered a memory for me. Way back in grade 7, there was a day where they were like, there's going to be no schoolwork and bring a game to play. And guess who went to the bathroom for 10 minutes when they suddenly decide to tell everybody this but me? And no one freaking told me when I come back. So the next day, or 2 days later, whatever day it was, I show up at school and everybody's doing something, and it's like, what's going on? Like, they're playing cards, they're talking, right? So-and-so was, one of my buddies was sick, another buddy was like engrossed with a girlfriend or something, this type of thing. So it's like my clique or whatever was occupied or was just doing nothing. And I'm getting bored. I'm roaming around. There's these 3 guys, And, you know, they've kind of like got the books on the down low because it is the 80s, you know, that type of thing. And they're just, it looks like they're just talking, and they had, you know, a couple dice being pushed around the table that were not six-sided dice, but there wasn't a map, there wasn't a grid, because they were like playing, you know, basic red box stuff or, you know, second edition kind of thing. And I'm listening to them talking, and it looked like they were discussing a fantasy movie. So I'm trying to enter myself in a discussion and talk to them or whatever. And they're like, well, no, we're playing a game. Oh, okay, cool. Do you mind if I play? And they're like, no, that would take too much time. And I couldn't grasp the fact. It's like, oh, does the round end? You know, can I join later, or do you mind if I just watch or whatever? Because they had to make characters. They're involved in a big campaign. You know, so my very first experience, I got gatekeeped, as it were. Okay, well, screw you guys. You go off and do this. You know, talk ZZ Top with all the smoking area burnouts and that kind of thing, who also game. That type of thing. And now to see that it's brought like by the teacher, hey guys, you know, on lunch hour, if anyone wants to stay in the classroom and do this, you know, express yourself. And it's not just for drama students, which I also was, but, you know, not just for like the drama class as an extra exercise. It was like for whomever, you know, because, you know, the 90s and Harry Potter just opened up this floodgate of like, oh, this could be cool, you know, that kind of thing to everyone. So I'm hoping that you guys are seeing that kind of thing in New Zealand schools, in Canadian schools. Have you guys heard anything about this? Have seen anything about this besides the loose media talk that I have?
Well, I can at least speak to Canada. So I actually published an article in a journal just last year and presented it in Bogota, Colombia, looking at how to use role-playing games to teach kids philosophy, which is what I did for a few years. Is I actually used D&D to get kids to reason with one another, and it was really easy to do as well. Basically, just right before a kid would finalize what their RPG character was doing, I would just get them to solicit some feedback from their peers. Now, of course, that kills D&D a bit. Like, it wasn't quite pure D&D, but it was good because it was a way that they would actually get engaged with ethical dilemmas in the real game. And the kids were so into it. It was nuts. And then we also, back in Vancouver, I had the privilege of being in a philosophy classroom at the school that me and Cam were working with. And we brought in a zombie RPG to teach the kids epistemology and ethics. And basically it started in the school classroom itself. We said zombies like begin knocking on the door and stuff. And we started having kids from other classrooms that weren't even attending that class, skipping out on other classes to come and play. Like they were digging it big time.
Oh, I thought you said
I think it's
get them to bang on the door on cue. There's zombies at the door, and a whole bunch of kids are like hammering. Everyone in our class is here, so who could it be? You freak the hell out of, you know, not a dry desk in sight, bastard. So no, I'm sorry. Okay, so no, it's great to see that, to, like, you know, role play in the workplace. It's even fun to see that the laughs are coming later because of the lag I've been suffering lately. We've been talking to the Bugbear brothers. Check them out on Instagram. And if I'm fishing in the right direction, perhaps Cam has something on Facebook in the future, but I won't press him on it right now. You know, because family comes first, the stay-at-home dad bit, you know. Daniel, you know, all Canadians know each other. Sure, he's 2 hours away. You know, we're going to hook up. We'll put another shrimp on the New Zealand Barbie or something, that type of thing. And we definitely got to talk old school more with Cam. But for right now, I'm out of time. I'm telling you, check out the Bugbear Brothers on Instagram. And we will see you next time on Attack of Opportunity. Say goodnight, Bugbears.
Good night.